Sorry for being late, everyone. Okay. So, I guess the gist of this talk is that when you enter into industry and actually in uni I probably heard it more, language bashing is a thing, and it's really, it is sometimes appropriate, but sometimes it's just a waste of time and there are much better things you could be doing, like building software. So I guess the idea of this talk is to learn to break down your project to actually identify when it is appropriate to use some fancy newfangled language and when it's actually appropriate not to use one. And then I will finish with a very whirlwind tour of Go and what some of its main points are and some projects that use it and I guess what is a trend for its use these days. It's kind of like when you're in primary school and you're writing stories and they're like, this is how you got to answer all these questions and then you build the context and all this kind of thing. And you want to answer these things when you're breaking down your problems, and once you break them down, you can you have the full context of the system you're trying to build. And it reminds you to see things from everyone's perspective, which is something that is easily forgotten when you're a developer, because it's just you want to play with the nice, shiny things that exist and so on and so forth. But then, what's the point of the software that you're developing? So, who is using your program? If you're, for me, it's enterprise. So I work at Console, we do networking stuff. It's all for enterprise, and so stability is this thing that they want, unfortunately, which means that new shiny things is sort of out of the question. There are some shiny things that we work with, which is great, but there is this expectation that you have, there's no, it has to be stable. It can't just be a little bit new and so on and so forth, and businesses or enterprise users will look at you and be like, no thanks, and walk away, and there goes your money. So yeah, where is the group using it? In my case, it's servers or the web, and so that's fairly standard, but in most languages, actually, most languages support server code and web code. It's fairly straightforward. But then if you have a mobile app, that's the case of where you're limited by choice of language. Your Java, Objective-C, Swift, and then JavaScript if you're doing your mobile, phone gap and so on. And that's improving, but it's not going to be improving very quickly. How much are they using it? So constantly versus intermittently. So one of the things I'm working on at Console is an internal tool for network operations and so on, and it's going to be used occasionally, but it's not something that has to be super duper reliant and all this kind of thing. It doesn't always know 5 nines and so on. So, but then there are cases where that is definitely the case, like say Pokemon Go or something. They don't exactly want to go down at any point because got to catch them all. And yeah, so it's the considerations for what it is you're building. So the program is doing. The biggest, I guess, consideration for the actual program itself is data, in terms of what it is that, if you're shipping around large amounts, what the efficiencies that it has to build, and the expectation on how quickly that gets from one place to another. So if you're doing very high speed, high frequency trading, all that kind of thing, your latencies have to be a lot smaller than, say, if you're doing a simple web app. So for a simple web app, you can choose whatever language you want. Really, it doesn't really matter. It's more up to you. The high frequency trading, you'll then have restrictions on performance and so on and so forth. The other constraints on the actual program itself is, say, where it's running. So if you're doing stuff on AWS or if you're doing it on an ARM processor or all this kind of thing, you hit more constraints as to what program it is that you can choose. Yeah. Team is one I probably find the most interesting in terms of how it is you work as a team, a development team. One of the big, probably the nicest things about uni is, apart from assignments, you can work on really whatever language you want. Like I dabbled in Haskell, Clojure, Julia, all this kind of thing. It doesn't matter. You don't have onboarding of other developers and being like, oh yeah, so this does this, and then giving you quizzical looks. You actually have to be able to have them go through an entire code base within a few months and be able to then replace you. Not quite, but you get the point. There is a dependency on how easy it is to understand a language when you have teammates, and how hard it is to communicate the changes you want to make, or how hard it is to communicate the new features and so on. So a great example, there's an article by Jim Plush at Gravity. They do a recommendation as a service, I believe. And they were using Scala. And they found that they had two groups within their organization. There was the guys that just liked Scala because it was better than Java. And then there was the other group that was I love functional programming and lambda calculus and all that kind of group. And it resulted in two tribes. And at one point, their production system went down and affected a significant number of customers. And they isolated the issue and found that it was resulting from something that the team that was present couldn't figure out because of how it had been written and the features of Scala that it used. And to me, if the snippet on the screen, that wasn't the one in question, but if there was a bug in there and I hadn't written it myself, I would be fairly lost as to what it's doing. And when you have a significant code base, you don't know all of it intrinsically, so you have to be able to read the code and understand what it's doing in a fairly timely fashion, and this does not promote that. As cool as Scala is, and as much as I like functional programming, this is fairly hard to read. Business is an often painful component of development. They don't often understand the components involved, but be that as it may, they're the ones that sell the product and therefore bring in the money. So They do have some constraints on what language you do, depending on where you work. If you're a big enterprise shop, then there's expectations. Again, like I was saying before, the startups, whatever allows you to move quickest. You're not going to be wanting something that's overly verbose or difficult to read. You're going to want something that is easy to understand and allows you to refactor quickly and change features and so on and so forth. Agility is a main component of that. And if you are trying to choose a language for a new greenfield project, being able to sell it to the business has to somehow meet their goals as well. So if you're saying, oh, we want to use this new fancy language, and they're like, is it stable? But if you can appeal to some other goal of theirs, be it adding several new features very quickly and all that kind of thing, you may be able to sell it. Depends on whether that language actually provides those benefits. Go. Go is an interesting language in that I read somewhere recently. It's not an innovative language. It's not particularly new in its design, but it provides. It wasn't a research language. It provides things that a lot of other languages provide, but it provides them easily and in an understandable way. It's started by Rob Pike, Robert Griesemer, and Ken Thompson at Google. So Rob Pike has a background at Bell Labs and Plan 9. And I wish it was that the story was true, but there was just a build-up of frustration on their part to the languages that Google still uses extensively, being Java, C++, and Python. And frustrations from what is an extensive code base and very large teams, and dealing with all the problems that come with that. I highly recommend reading this paper by Rob Pike. It's a great look into not only Go, but also their frustrations with Java, C++, and I don't think they go into Python much. No? Really? Demos. Okay, so I'll go through the basic program structure. So this is the package declaration. So package main is your, it's the only special package name. This could be doesn't really matter. And an import of it would, if I wanted to import something, whoa, what's going on? No spaces for me. So if I had a package, hello world, this would be how I would import it. So this is what I basically, you're naming your dependency, and that's what it allows you to do. And it also, a benefit to it is that for a package in Go, it can be multiple files in a directory. So by doing this, you know, like, it all becomes one file. So the file itself is actually, it's a superficial split of code. So you don't actually, it gets compiled to one file, so you can split it on domain instead of because of some syntactical level or whatnot. Funct is print, so funct.println, hello. Go is Unicode by default, everything, so there is no Python 2.3 issues, so on. This is a very, very simple server. So one of the really good things about Go is that it was written in a time that was web-orientated already. And so APIs were a main thing. So the standard library is pretty well equipped to handle these sort of things. Let's see if it'll work this time. Nope, never mind. Goals of Go: eliminate slowness, eliminate clumsiness, improve effectiveness, maintain, even improve scale, with the considerations of large programs, large teams, large number of dependencies. Now, because I'm running out of time, I'll skip to the end, apart from this one slide. So this involves concurrency. If you haven't seen CSP-style concurrency in something like Erlang, this is Go's take on it. And the biggest thing with Go and its concurrency model is the channels are first class. So they provide, so concurrency is not some add-on to it. It's built in from the start. Oops. Some big projects that have used Go, because there are a lot more than this, but these are the big ones that most of you will recognize. Docker, Kubernetes, Juju, CockroachDB is a brand new database that's got some very awesome properties. And it's indicative of the big projects that are using Go is indicative of, I guess, some of the things that it's really good at, which is the distributed web-based stuff. It can do big projects very well, so the teams that are working on these are huge. And they're able to keep adding features fairly steadily. Depending on whether Docker's actually adding the right ones is another question. But yeah, I guess the main, as I said before, is the main idea is consider what is right for your team, business, and users. It's not about the language, really. It is a tool, and it should be considered as such. It's not the main focus of what we do. What we do is create and solve problems. So yeah. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Yeah. Questions? And these will be online there. And yeah, I'm good.